Support for Consider This is provided by the University of Nebraska at Omaha College of Communication, Fine Arts, and Media.
Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
It is a movement generating lots of interest, excitement, and dollars in the Metro. Hi, everyone. I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic, Omaha Gives. Joining us to talk more about it are Callie Baker, Vice President of Community Relations for the Omaha Community Foundation, and Mary Talon, Director of Development and Programs for the Omaha Creative Institute. Thanks to the two of you for being here, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
You bet. Kelly, we're going to start with you. How do you define a nonprofit organization?
Sure. Well, through the Community Foundation, we define a nonprofit as an organization which is a public 501c3 organization as defined by the IRS. And so they have received an IRS determination letter designating that they're a 501c3 public organization.
And just briefly walk us through that process, because I know there are lots of folks out there who represent some type of organization and they're kind of on the fence. Should we go to nonprofit? Should we stay the way we are? So walk us just briefly through that.
Well, you would work with an attorney to file for that. So there is a legal process involved with obtaining that status, and then every year you must file a Form 990 or a 990N to stay in good status with the IRS. And there are several requirements on that 990 that you have to maintain.
Okay. And when we're talking nonprofits, how many are we talking here in the Metro?
In Douglas, Sarpy, and Pottawatomie County, there are 3,123 nonprofits, and that is from the National Center on Charitable Statistics, and those are organizations in our area that have filed a Form 990 in the last 3 years.
And you would know because you are with the Omaha Community Foundation. And I know lots of folks have heard about that, but tell us, what is its mission and maybe a little bit of history?
Sure. We've been around for 33 years. We were formed in 1982. And our mission is to cultivate generosity and strengthen nonprofits. We're unique in the philanthropic environment in that we're kind of at this intersection between donors, other foundations, and then nonprofits. People give through the Community Foundation to nonprofits in the metro area, and then we provide programs like Omaha Gives to really bring this community together around giving.
What are some of the other things, and we're going to talk quite a bit about Omaha Gives here in just a minute, but what are some examples for those folks who go back as far as you were describing that you have done to make the community a better place?
Sure. We have historically the foundation of the foundation is built on a family of donors that gives through us. So there are about 1,300 people that work through the foundation to conduct their charitable giving. Last year they gave about $132 million collectively. But again, that is through the work of 1,300 individuals and not only the Community Foundation. So that's really our legacy. That is why we were started. It really is a collective that represents a community of givers.
And you became involved how?
About 8 years ago, I was familiar with Sarah Boyd, our president and CEO, and wanted to join a great organization with great leadership, and so came and joined the foundation as their director of communication 8 years ago.
And your background, is this something you had always aspired to become, or what led you there?
My background is in marketing and communications, and I'd worked at some corporate for-profit marketing enterprises that were also very involved in the community. And so getting to know a lot of individuals that were also involved in the community is how I learned about the Community Foundation and then my position at the time.
Wow.
So.
And you're here at a very exciting time because, of course, we're going to talk
time.
about Omaha Gives.
Yes.
So, in your own words, when somebody runs into you on the street and says, "Hey, Callie, what is that anyway?" What do you tell them?
It is a 24-hour day of online fundraising for metro area nonprofits. And so some distinctions that I always like to make: it is online only. It is for participating nonprofits, not for the Community Foundation. So there were 704 nonprofits that participated. So the more exciting explanation, in my opinion, is it is one day of the year that the entire community can really get excited and join together around giving. And it creates a lot of fun momentum in the community.
Well, I'm trying to picture, because of course in the world of development fundraising, those outside the box ideas are always the best one. This is pretty outside the box. How did this all come about?
Sure. Nationally, Giving Day started happening about 7 years ago. And so the Community Foundation world is very collegial. And so we started seeing this happen specifically in Minnesota, and we reached out to other community foundations, did a lot of research, and then came back to our community and thought about how does this fit in our community. And so we changed some things, we tweaked some things, and thought about a strategy that worked best. So we think that it's a great way to get people involved in giving because it's a $10 giving level. And a lot of times I think most of us, including myself, would say, I don't know if I'm going to give $10. I don't know what kind of difference is that going to make. Well, this is one day out of the year that it makes a huge difference to give $10.
Well, and we'll look at the difference that it's making because we have some numbers here, and we're going to put those up on the screen for our viewers. Callie, okay, so we see them. Tell us the story really behind these numbers.
Sure. 8.9 million was given in one day. There was some period leading up to that where you could schedule a donation, but that also includes incentives. And we put together some incentives from some very generous sponsors to really make that $10 go further. So we have bonus funds and prizes that we give out. So again, that's an incentive to really give on this day versus any other day of the year. And then that 20,600 donors and the 704 organizations, that's really what the day's about, more so than that $8.9 million, because the connection between those 20,000 donors and those over 700 nonprofits, that's a connection that lasts the rest of the nonprofit's lifetime. So it's just the beginning of a relationship of giving and support.
Now, in your first year, how many organizations were involved?
There were 318 organizations that participated. So it's grown, yeah.
Wow, and grown with the help of organizations like Mary's, right? And so before we talk about your participation in this particular event, tell us about the Omaha Creative Institute.
I'd be happy to. Omaha Creative Institute was started in 2008 with a mission to build an audience for the arts in the Omaha greater metropolitan area and to support local artists. And we do that through various programs. We teach workshops on weekends where we employ professional artists that adults can have a short-term, very creative, unusual couple hours with an artist. We also are very excited about the second year of a program called Artist Inc., as in Incorporated, which will happen again this September. And this teaches sort of fundamental business skills to artists, some of the skills that they don't get in art school or with their arts degree. And 25 artists from all disciplines, all ranges of media, get together once a week for 8 weeks at near our office in the Tip Top building, and learn these, financial issues, legal issues, how to market yourself, all that sort of basic business stuff, business information, to make them be able to sustain their art practice. We also support and present community-wide public art projects. I don't know if you remember, in 2013 we were behind the Play Me I'm Yours. The pianos that were put out in public areas throughout the city were decorated by artists, involved presentations and performances by nonprofits. We organize that. And then finally, we also reach out to corporations, businesses, school groups, church groups who want to do creative team building or sort of artistic group activities together. Again, we employ artists to do that. So through that, we not only build an audience for artists and art, but try to help support artists, giving them tools and resources for their careers.
Fantastic. Now, how did you become involved in that organization?
I was invited to join by the founding director, Susan Thomas. And I had been doing fundraising with another nonprofit and been working part-time, and it just was a fit in our she needed me, and it worked out for me to join her. And now she has since retired just recently, and our new executive director is Emily Moody. And so we work together on designing and implementing programs. I also do, mostly fundraising and development. But we're a small organization, so I wear a lot of hats, as you know, with nonprofits. You have to do a little bit of everything.
Right,
So.
right. Now, how did you first hear about Omaha Gives? And for those folks out there watching who are affiliated with a nonprofit, maybe more importantly, how did you become then involved with it? And then we'll talk more about the outcomes for your respective organization.
Okay. I've been thinking about this question when you first proposed it, and I don't know when I didn't know about Omaha Gives, because when you're a nonprofit, you love it so much. So I don't know where I first heard about it. Maybe perhaps with the previous nonprofit I worked at when the first Omaha Gives started 3 years ago. We've just really embraced what Omaha Gives has to offer. I have to commend the Omaha Community Foundation for the tremendous job they do with this program. It's so well organized. It's so supportive. They had training sessions multiple times all over the city. It's like if you missed one, you could just, there's another one an hour later. And they were just wonderful in that way. So we just love being involved with Omaha Gives.
Well, what blows my mind about this particular event, right, is for those on the outside looking in, right, it's a one-day event. So it's here and it's gone. But for the folks who work in your world, there's so much that leads up to it, and probably for a one-day event like this, so much more that comes after, because you're having to take a look at your respective numbers. Those are important, but more importantly, who's behind the numbers, the donors, and the relationships that you're wanting to establish and cultivate. I learned that 40% of the giving this year, for example, was first-time donors.
First-time donation to an organization.
Right.
So someone that had never supported that organization before.
And Kelly, for people who maybe didn't participate or folks who aren't used to giving online, when you go to the website, there is just, all those organizations are listed. And so tell us about that, because it's not just the name. You then have links to learn more about places like the Omaha Creative Institute. So kind of give us a visual, if you would, of what folks saw that day when they went to try to select what they were going to do.
They each nonprofit has a web page that they can talk about what they do, show visuals to really tell their story, to really let people know how they work in the community. There's also a leaderboard, and that's what we hear, that leaderboard the day of the event. People love to follow that because in real time it shows the number of donors and the amount raised, and so it's a friendly competition going as well. But something that we do hear from people is, well, you can go to our website and search for other nonprofits. A lot of times they'll hear about the event from a nonprofit that they support as well, or from their friends on social media. So you start seeing all this excitement happening, and then perhaps you get to the site and then you see there's 704 amazing nonprofits working hard that day.
I like Mary how she said friendly competition, because one of the things that I noticed when I went onto the site, and I don't know how else she would do it, but things were in alpha order. And so my question to you is, especially for the first-time donor, is it a matter of stopping on the B's because they see a child related nonprofit organization, and maybe we don't get down to the Y or the Z. Did you notice that maybe the people towards the top received more donations? Does that typically happen if they're in a certain order? I know that sounds kind of silly, but if I'm an excited donor, I might just think, oh wow, I'm going to stop here and then move forward.
We don't necessarily notice that because, again, I think a lot of people will get to the site through another nonprofit. So a lot of times nonprofits will link to their page, so people see that on social media. They see it in an email, and then they click on it and they go directly to a nonprofit's page, sometimes before they even get to our leaderboard or the full range of nonprofits. Also, there's we separate nonprofits into 3 categories: small, medium, and large, so that they can win prizes in those categories. So we know that there's smaller organizations, sometimes all volunteers, maybe 1, maybe 3 employees, that it's difficult for them to have the same presence in marketing and promotion that an organization that has, say, 100 employees. So we divide them up that way, or you can search by a service area. So if you care about children and after-school programs, or if you care about the arts, you can search that way and then see all the organizations working within that area. So multiple ways to really get to all of those organizations.
Which makes it kind of nice, Mary, especially for folks like you. You do have a smaller staff, and I do want to give our viewers an idea of what you really do, because it's easy for those of us over here to say, well, why don't you do this, and why didn't you look at it this way? When you're talking 3 or 4 people, you're all taking on quite a responsibility. So if you again could outline, what does the staff look like at Omaha Creative Institute, and then we'll do a little bit of information exchange in terms of what your title really means on a day-to-day basis. So tell us about your staff.
Well, Emily Moody, as I said, is our new executive director. She's been on for about 2 months now, and she, she does all that, the financial, books and the payments and all the big picture, support of the organization. Deals with the board a lot, and sort of decides, like I said, the big picture, major shifts in programming, or what we're going to continue doing, maybe what we'll stop doing. And I basically assist her, support her, discuss with her. I also then do a lot of grant writing. We work together on things like major gifts, where we have maybe a private donor that we're hoping might support OCI with a large gift. We have our marketing coordinator who does a lot of the social media, a lot of the, updating doing our Facebook, our Twitter, all the different things that, becomes a full-time job almost if you really want to embrace social media. So like I said, it's a very open, we're just in one big carol together in this collab down at Alley Pointer Maquetto Architecture, and we just, there aren't the most definite lines between our jobs because we're small. So we have to help each other, support each other, learn from each other, discuss all that. So.
Well, and you mentioned the board of directors, BODs, right? We have those in pretty much every nonprofit. And I want to talk a little bit more about that role. It's a volunteer role for folks, but they really do play a very important role. So talk about board of directors. You can talk about your own, or just in general terms, Mary, what those folks are really all about. Well,
they provide both guidance in programming. They also support us either, the phrase is give or get, right? They either give some support or they go out and get their friends to support. And it's when you're small also, sometimes we can think, Emily and I and Rachel can think have some great idea, then we put it at the board meeting, and it's like, we get some different brains behind it and different outlooks from the business person, from the lawyer, from the artist, from, the therapist, whoever, they will look at our choices and decisions we're making in a different light. So we find them very, couldn't do it without them.
Well, Kelly, variety really is the key when it comes to a board, because they're almost an advisory, for lack of a better term, right? They're coming together, they're doing their lives outside of that, but they're bringing an expertise and an enthusiasm, and so oftentimes your nonprofit is as successful as the board is involved.
Absolutely. An engaged board of directors is absolutely a key to a successful nonprofit. A board of directors really leads establishing a mission. They have fiduciary responsibility in very technical terms, and that's part of that 990 process that we talked about earlier. And I would say that Omaha Gives wouldn't happen without our board of directors. They are very involved, specifically our chair, Todd Simon, and Jennifer Hamann. They lead a lot of our work with Omaha Gives, and there's just no way we could make that happen without our board of directors. And really the level of involvement, whether it's sponsorship, whether it's getting nonprofits involved, and then actually giving that day, our board is really incredible.
Wow. So let's talk for a minute about the criteria involved, because you said 704 organizations took part in this year, but we have 3,000 plus in terms of numbers. So what is the scope, right? And let's talk a little bit, I know it's next year, but it's going to come more quickly than we know. What's the process for people wanting to become involved?
Well, they would, a public 501c3 nonprofit would visit our website, and they can sign up to participate. And then our staff goes through a process to verify their eligibility. And their eligibility would be, again, that status with the IRS, and then also they have to be located in the 3-county metro area, or they would have to be doing over 50% of their services and support would have to come from the metro area. So it's fairly broad, but when we hear that number, over 3,000 nonprofits and 704 participated, we also would say that it might not be right for every nonprofit. Omaha Gives is very specific. It's online, it's one day. I think that Omaha Gives is really part of an overall fundraising plan, and if it doesn't quite fit into a nonprofit's fundraising plan, then I think that that's really smart and very wise of them to not participate. If they want to take advantage of the day, it can be a really fun way to get online, experiment with social media, and really have a good time with what is your online presence and how do you engage people that day.
Yeah, Mary, she said a very important key word, and that was plan, right? Because I know that one of the pieces of feedback that came out of this was, are you ever concerned as a nonprofit that a potentially large donor would log on, right, and maybe give something? I think every gift is meaningful, but something that would be less significant than they would have if Mary Talon had gone to their door and had that personal exchange with them. I mean, how is it that you were able to kind of figure that into the big picture?
Well, we did know of one donor who was going to make a fairly substantial gift, and we actually wanted her to give it that day and to get the ball rolling. And then we could use that, and then one of our board members was generous in several of our board members, but one specific one, we used his gift to do a match, do the extra bonus or the incentive dollars. So in some ways it's good to have that, the larger gift to sort of kickstart, get you going, and then we could use also the one other major gift as an incentive. So even though the majority of our gifts were the $10 and $25 and $50 gifts, it was nice to get that base with a larger gift.
Which leads me to my next question, because I know it's exciting when you see the numbers roll in, but at the same turn, if you're the development programs fundraising person, you're thinking, oh my goodness, these are this many more contacts that I'm going to need to make. So I want to talk about maybe one of the most important things in this realm, and that is the follow-up. So now you have, how many donors did your respective organization get that day, Mary?
We got 93.
Okay.
Which, remember, we're very small.
You know what,
so,
though,
but for us, we were thrilled because it was more than double than the previous year.
Well, and so more than double the opportunity from that mindset. So you have that list of 93 folks.
Right.
Now you, in your role, after the day is gone and everybody's thinking about the next thing, you're still thinking about this. Talk to us about what you're needing to do then in terms of proper follow-up to begin cultivating those relationships.
Well, we did a very old school thing. I must give most of the credit to Emily. I did a few, and she did most. Completely handwritten, snail mail thank you notes to every single one. So that right there, I think, might stand out. Sometimes you get a thank you on the bottom of a form letter, but this was on our little OCI stationery. So we thought that was a good step forward. And then immediately all the contact information goes into our donor management system and into our listserv, So immediately they're getting our email newsletter blast that comes out every other week. We're hopefully, linking them then to our Facebook, all our social media, and hopefully that, they will just continue to learn about our programs. People usually want to know where their money has gone or is going, so hopefully they'll log on to our website, learn about it, call us up, whatever, we'll just embrace them.
This is going to be a silly question, but I have to ask it. Do you find social media to be as big a help, I think, as people would think, or because you talked about management, and it all really boils down to making that donor feel like they're the only person in the room for you, right? So with social media, you have things going out in so many different places. From a managerial standpoint, are you able to adapt and adjust with all of that, or do you find it to be pretty challenging?
Well, for me, it's not really my ken, that's we hire someone to do that.
Okay.
So, but so many people communicate that way now that you absolutely miss the boat if you don't utilize it to the best of your ability. People, especially like Twitter, the retweeting and saw you on this and so, yeah, it's separate sort of identity in some ways, but like I said, we're in this small office, so there's constant communication, and I learn from what Rachel learns from the social media. She tells me, I tell her about things, so we do the best we can.
Well, I liked what you said about when you're not sure, you bring in somebody who is sure, because that obviously lends to your success. So that's a very smart move. Okay, we have about a minute remaining. So what's next for Omaha Gives?
It is time to start planning. Actually, the Omaha Gives platform is a year-round giving platform now, and so in previous years it went away after that one day, but it is out there and it will be out there. So going forward into 2016, we're already planning some new features. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned indeed. And in the meantime, if you want to learn more, we do have a website, so we want to direct folks to that if they want to go ahead and check it out. So we'll put that up. It is omahagives24.org. Save the date, folks, right? So the next big event, May 25th of 2016. And Callie, for the old-fashioned folks, quickly, what is your phone number?
402-342-3582.
Awesome. Ladies, thank you so much for being here. Congratulations on the big event.
Thank you.
And maybe we'll check it out next year and see how you did there.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next week.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television. More information can be found at unotv.unomaha.edu. If you'd like to share your comments about this show, call UNO TV at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours, or email us at considerthis@tvmail.unomaha.edu.